Okay, so welcome to episode 3 of From the Shed End podcast with myself, TDOT, and Theo as well. How you doing, Theo? You okay?
All good, yeah. I was just saying that I got a bigger smile on my face this Monday than last Monday.
Definitely. And yeah, it was a bit doom and gloom after the West Brom game. I think we needed a better performance, and we definitely got that at the weekend. So let's just jump straight into it. 4-1 Crystal Palace, better performance. Yeah, let me get your thoughts first. What did you think on the game? What was your take on that?
I was extremely impressed. I think I mentioned last week that it completely depends on the first 10, 15 minutes, how we come out and kind of the performance we put in the beginning of the game. And I thought that first 20 minutes was really, really impressive. I was actually just thinking before this, it's probably the most impressive Chelsea display I've seen in that first half since maybe the Antonio Conte days when we beat, I think, Everton 5-0 at Stamford Bridge. It was a really, really overall great attacking display. I thought the fluidity between the front three of, I think it was Mount, Havertz, and Pulisic was great. And obviously, Palace playing with that narrow kind of back four allowed those kind of wing backs to really get into the game. And the link up play with the front three was really, really great. I think Havertz was kind of the star of the show. Unlucky not to get a hat trick on the day. I thought he was superb, looked a lot more confident. Just you can generate a bit more power on his shots. I think the goals will come for sure. We saw those kind of chances he had in the second half. But that first goal, arguably the hardest goal to score, and he kind of took that chance brilliantly, bent it into the corner. So overall, a really, really great performance. I thought the lineup was maybe a bit unlucky not to feature Giroud or Abraham. I thought we spoke about that last week. I felt that
Yeah,
maybe Tuchel would play a more traditional front nine. I mean, number nine.
yeah,
But I think overall his decisions kind of paid off because I think the front three of Pulisic, Havertz, and Mount, the fluidity between the three was superb. And I think in his post-match interview, he said that he doesn't want to tinker too much with the squad. He doesn't want to make too much changes, particularly at this time of the season, which isn't a great sign for Giroud, Abraham, or any other maybe attacking player that's trying to get into the squad right now. But he's basing it on kind of performances, what he sees on the pitch and in training. But overall, a great performance. Havertz was great. We spoke about Pulisic as well, and I thought he was superb. He looked back to his best. That first goal he scored, almost identical to the one he scored at Selhurst Park last
yeah,
summer. Just
literally.
smashing. Yeah, I think Chelsea put up a tweet today kind of comparing the two goals and how identical they were. Just smashed it into the roof of the net. And I think that technique is not easy to do. So honestly, credits to Pulisic. He looked back to his best. And now I think he's kind of going to really going to cause Tuchel some headaches with the front three he picks for Porto tomorrow.
Yeah, I have to echo a lot of what you said. I agree. I think the signs were there from the kickoff. I thought we obviously you take the game, the Porto game midweek on Wednesday last week, and then it was going to be instrumental that first sort of 20, 15 minutes of the game, how we were going to play, where we're going to be fatigued, where we're going to be back to where we were with West Brom. But just the way that the front three, one of the things I noticed about Palace where they weren't able to mark Mount, Havertz, or Pulisic, they just couldn't. That false nine kind of formation, it works really well for certain teams. City have done it before in the past as well. We haven't done it as so much because obviously we've had Giroud and Tammy's chipped in as well with a lot of the goals. But I just felt that it really worked because Cahill struggled. It's almost like the two centre backs didn't want to commit. They were playing quite sort of, like you said, narrow. I thought Van Aanholt and I think it was Joel Ward at right back. They just couldn't handle what was coming towards them. Every time we had the ball, it looked like we were going to score. Even for the goal, I think it was Eze. You wouldn't think to be back defending. That's how deep Crystal Palace were at one point, and I think Eze loses the ball to Havertz, who ends up scoring anyway for the first goal. But yeah, I think he needed that. I'm sure it was his first goal since October in the Premiership. So, it was good to see Havertz have a brilliant game. And even like you said, he could have had 4 or 5. That's based off the whole game. There's 2 halves of the game. But I wanted to pick out again Mason Mount. Brilliant player. He was just all over the place. Even for the free kick, I mean, arguably, Gary Cahill again, he could do better. There's he's an experienced defender. You expect him to put a bit more of a challenge in against Zuma, but for the delivery of the free kick, it was brilliant to see. And like you said, Pulisic as well. This is at 2-0. Identical. I think, like you said, I think there's the same thing that the Chelsea Twitter account put up today around the identical, from the last season's one. So I was made up with the team. It was interesting. I wanted to ask you around Callum Hudson-Odoi playing almost the Reece James role on Saturday. What was your thoughts on that? Did you think it worked well, or did you think that at times, especially for the goal, not that he was at fault, but Reece James being there, would that have been a goal? Would they have been able to get that crossing?
Possibly, because it did come from that right hand side with Schlupp putting in the cross in for Benteke. But overall, I think Hudson-Odoi had a really great game. I think what Hudson-Odoi offers that James doesn't offer is that kind of drive into the penalty box and almost that fourth attacking player to support the strikers or the attacking midfielders. And I think he put in a great game. I can't really fault him for his performance. He definitely, I think his crossing maybe isn't as good as Reece James, but the ability to drive into the box, I think, is something that maybe Reece James lacks a bit. I think sometimes Reece James gets into the box and sometimes he tries to attempt that kind of, low cross, which when you don't have Giroud or Abraham, it's not very effective. But I think Hudson-Odoi, especially to kind of support those other players, he looked good, possibly at fault for the goal, as I said. But when you got the aerial ability of Benteke, kind of to put in that kind of type of header, I think that was his first goal at Selhurst Park since the goal he scored against us in July, I think it was. So, he does always find a bit of form against us. But I think overall, Hudson-Odoi is a great wing back. I think he's really kind of looked rejuvenated under Tuchel in that formation. It's not an easy formation, not an easy role to play, I think.
Yeah.
Not an easy one, I think. But I think the option to have either Reece James or Hudson-Odoi, and maybe bring in Reece James come the 70th minute if you want to be a bit more comfortable and compact at the back, I think that's definitely an option as well. So I think I'm really happy to have those two in that position.
Yeah, and I think even when Reece James came on, I'm not sure if he got the assist in the end, but it was his cross that led to the Pulisic second goal. I think took a deflection on the way in, but it gives us that option. We've got options now, and I think at times, we've not that we've been starved of it, but I think we've sometimes wished we had more or better options. We've probably had options, but they're not been the right ones, and I think we've got that kind of. Everyone was talking even after the game, that this is the second time now under Tuchel that we've scored more than 2 goals. I don't think goals was ever, yes, it was an issue for us. It wasn't, we weren't scoring, 6 or 7, but I don't think we've ever really been that team for the last couple of seasons anyway that does that. I think for us, it was more of the team sort of cohesion and getting the team playing in the right way from start to, from back to front. Defensively, we had loads of issues. Tuchel seems to be ironing them out slowly. It's not 100% right yet, but he's ironing a lot of those issues out, even in the midfield as well. I think he's sorted some of those issues there. So I think we've got a lot more options now, and I think that's going to be a good thing for us as well.
Yeah, fully agree. I think last couple of seasons, goals really haven't come easy. I think for us, we struggled at times to score over 3 goals, but it's kind of made for nubby finishes, which is, as a Chelsea fan, is horrible to have. Last 10, 15 minutes of a game, you don't want to be just having a 1-goal lead. But I think, that kind of what was brilliant about this game, we went in at halftime 3-0 up, and it just made for kind of a comfortable watch in the second half, even though maybe a bit of fatigue, maybe in the second half, we didn't come out as stronger as we wanted to. Maybe we still had Porto in the back of our minds. We wanted to maybe, not come out 4 guns blazing. But overall, I was really happy with the performance. I think main thing we kind of wanted to come out, get out of that game, as you said, is the team cohesion. I think, and that kind of blended really well. And Hudson-Odoi, I just mentioned him before. He kind of, in that first 15 minutes, he kind of really came in as the kind of 4th striker at times. And last thing I'll say about Havertz is just that moment where I think he dinked it over Van Aanholt. That was beautiful. It almost looked like prime Bergkamp, but
it literally was.
Yeah, and I'm very unlucky with the finish, but great save from Guaita. But also, he looked really sharp. Honestly, I said it at the beginning of the episode, but that kind of, even that pass for the assist for Pulisic's goal, the first one, he doesn't lift his head. He knows that Pulisic will be there in that position. So that just reinforces the idea of those kind of front three really playing with that kind of fluidity, cohesion, knowing where each player will be, kind of anticipating their movements. So I think that's something that definitely Tuchel's worked on in the training ground. And it's really looking like it's finally getting the results on the pitch now.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting. I know you touched on it before, so we may as well carry that over. The last thing I want to say actually on Palace is it's interesting because I'm pretty sure I read the other day they've got 11 players that are out of contract in the summer. So it'll be interesting to see the next couple of months how that works for them. I'm pretty sure that some key players like Sacco, Gary Cahill's one of them, Benteke as well, someone else, Andros Townsend as well. So they're quite, and there's, obviously other players as well. There's still a big question mark around Zaha. Yeah, I mean, obviously they're safe this season, but it just means there's a lot of work to do. Is Roy Hodgson the right guy to do that? What's your thoughts? Do you think it needs a bit of change at Palace, or what do you think?
I think I'm a big fan of Roy Hodgson. I think he's a great manager. He doesn't seem to, type of manager that, you'd want to kind of have his guidance as a young player. But at the same time, you look at this Palace squad and it's very, very odd. I think the average age is probably high 20s, low 30s. Yeah. It's very, very high. And I think this could possibly be Roy Hodgson's last season. Not that he's not getting the results, or I think Palace are a mid-table team and that's why they're finishing this season. But I think there's been talks of someone possibly the likes of Eddie Howe, Frank Lampard coming in to replace him. And I think that would be the perfect move for Palace. Yeah, I think honestly a young manager to get a kind of, come in, maybe bring in some kind of talents out on loan. I'm going to talk about it later on in the episode, but the likes of Conor Gallagher possibly on loan to Palace. I think that's the type of player that will really kind of, suit their type of play. And but I think they're a strong team. They've always kind of hurt us sometimes at Selhurst Park. So I think the result on Saturday was a great result for us. And I'm always kind of, a bit nervous when we play Palace because I know it's not a tough team to play. They're very, very kind of inconsistent, but in a good way that they can hurt the big teams, So I don't know. I think it was a great result, but I think Palace, I think they want to kind of push for that maybe top 8, top 6 possibly in the next couple of seasons. And they've got the ability in their squad. I think Zaha is definitely kind of, hovering around that level of maybe, top 10 players in the Premiership. Whether he pushes for that move to a better team or he kind of stays at Palace and cements his place as a club legend, I don't know. But I think a change of manager possibly would do them some good.
I think it's needed, isn't it? And no sort of disrespect to Roy, but he's done it for so many years, and it almost, especially not just at Palace, but I think at Palace it almost maybe feels a little bit stale now, and it does need that new, fresh ideas and fresh blood and fresh, just a revamp at the club. And this might be the time, if a lot of these players don't want to sign new contracts and they do move on, they might look at doing that. And I think Eddie Howe, Frank Lampard, there's a number of other managers out there that I'm sure would, chomp at the bits to try and get that job there. So it'd be interesting to see how that works for Palace. But like you said, brilliant win for us. Just on the last bit about the game yesterday, the league position, it's going to change a lot over the next couple of weeks. I'm just thinking back now. So Liverpool won originally. They won their game, and then we won our game. And I'm trying to think back to yesterday now. So West Ham. Right, well, that was it. So the West Ham game was, we really needed a draw. I mean, if we're being selfish, we needed a draw in that game. And then obviously the Tottenham United game. So what's your thoughts just briefly on our qualifications still? Are they still what you said last week, and that we still, are we kind of, out of those teams that we've just mentioned, are we the team that should hopefully realistically qualify for the Champions League?
I think so. I honestly think so. I think it's in our hands, especially when you consider that we've still got to play West Ham away and Leicester at home. I think if we get results in those 2 games, I think it's in our hands after that. We've got Brighton at home, Fulham at home, which are games I think we should be winning, honestly. I think anything less than 3 points would be very disappointing in those type of games. But I think it's in our hands, especially if we kind of play like the way we did on Saturday. I think, it kind of makes us a lot more kind of confident going into these type of games. But I think, as you said, I think we really needed a draw, at least in the Leicester-West Ham game. But I think this could spell danger for Leicester now, honestly. I think it was Maddison and a couple of the other players, I think, were out of the squad for breaching COVID restrictions.
Right.
So I think, whether they get back into the team.
I wonder why they weren't in there, because it was a big game for them to be out. So yeah, okay.
I think it was Chowdhury, Maddison, and I think another player, maybe Perez. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it was Perez.
But I think those 3 players out of the squad, whether Rodgers brings them back in the coming weeks or kind of still wants to kind of punish them somehow. But Vardy's not firing like he was at the start of the season.
No.
They don't have the distraction of Europa, at least, so that their full attention would be on the FA Cup semi coming up this weekend as well.
Yeah.
But I think they I think they haven't really been in this position often, except for that title-winning season. So it's kind of still a bit new to them. I think Tottenham losing at the weekend, I think they could be out of the season. They look almost like a broken team yesterday with Son's interview as well, saying how he's going to be, he's really going upset for this result. He's going to play on his mind for the next 2-3 days. Mourinho obviously was typical post-match interviews, but I think Liverpool will really push there. I think Leicester will drop out, and I think it will be between Chelsea, Liverpool, and West Ham. And I think Liverpool and maybe Chelsea will edge it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I'd be very surprised if Leicester, the way that they're playing, the form that they're in at the moment, if they would make it. West Ham are probably the dark horses, and we can't really rule them out. They are playing brilliant football. Jesse Lingard's obviously carrying the team at the moment. He's been sensational since he got there. But on paper, we should be the team that gets in there. We're in brilliant form. Take away the West Brom game, we're in brilliant form. Tuchel's come in, he's changed, he's done what he needed to do at the club. And Liverpool have sort of found that form. Their home records hasn't been brilliant, but, they got the win at the weekend as well. So it'll be interesting. I think it's going to go down to the wire. I think it's going to be every week we could have this conversation, and we'll be talking about different clubs in there as well. So all we can do is win our games. And I think, like you said, we've got some crucial ones. I think it's a big week that we've got coming up now. So it's probably no better time to briefly speak about Porto on Tuesday. 2-0 win in their domestic game on Saturday. It was an easy game for them. Their key players are back. They came on as in the second half. So they had a really brilliant game on Saturday. But after the Crystal Palace game, are you confident now that we can potentially go into that game with a bit more, of a plan and an idea that we might actually qualify for the semi-finals now?
Yeah, I think especially on the back end of that Palace victory, and Thomas Tuchel saying that he doesn't want to make too many changes at this stage of the season to the squad, probably means that we'll play a very similar lineup. I think to probably Reece James as a right wing back, maybe even Alonso, giving Chilwell a break at left wing back. But I think we'll stick with the front three. Maybe Werner coming in possibly for Pulisic, but maybe that may be a mistake, seeing that Pulisic's been, very, very kind of prolific, especially against Palace, and he got that goal against West Brom. I'm definitely going into this game with a bit of confidence. I think I was very, very nervous last week when we played Porto, and I was rightly so, because they gave us a very difficult game. But I think the two goal away goal cushion will really help us. I think you mentioned their two suspended players, some of their better players, kind of coming in for the second half of their domestic game this weekend. Maybe means that they're being rested for the Porto for their game against us on Tuesday, which is slightly worrying because those players are good. I've watched them this season in the Champions League, Taremi and Oliveira. I think Porto will score in this game. I think maybe quite early in the game as well to put a bit of pressure on us. But I think we will get a victory. I think a 2-1 victory, especially if Mount keeps up this form and he seems to just be getting better week in, week out. I was reading the comments on the YouTube video of these non-Chelsea fans saying, Mount looks really, really good this season. Every game I watch him, he just gets better and better. So I think we'll win. I think 2-1, but it will be a very difficult game again. I think Porto have nothing to lose in this one. They'll need to score. They'll need to score quite early as well.
Yeah. So
I'm expecting a tricky start again, trickier than the one last week. But again, if we play like we did against Palace with the fluidity of passing and kind of anticipating movements, I think we'll be quite comfortable in attack.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think as much as I don't want us to sit back at all during that game, I think Porto are going to have to bring the game to us. But we also have to we still think we need another I'd say another goal, maybe 2 goals. We need to at least score 2 goals in that game to feel comfortable. If we can get them early, it'd be brilliant. But I do feel like that, it's going to be a totally different game. It won't be. I mean, they gave us a game last week, and that was with key players missing. So you can only imagine what that's going to be like, in tomorrow's game. It's important. We need to treat this like a final. Every game we play now, we have to treat it like a final. We have to treat it like we have the intention of winning the game. Hopefully, which I don't think we do. I don't think I've watched a Tuchel Chelsea performance where we've sat back and we've allowed a lot of that pressure that I can remember. I might be wrong, but I just feel like we've got to start just like we did at Palace. Take the game to them. It's a different game altogether. I understand that, but I think we still need to attempt to get a early goal. It'd be interesting who he starts, whether he goes for Giroud or he goes back to Tammy, or if he keeps it how it was. I think he should. I think he should keep exactly the same. I think I agree. Maybe put Reece James back in the position that he's more comfortable. Hudson-Odoi done really well, but I feel like Reece James is a bit more comfortable there. I'd probably rest Pulisic. Actually, it worries me. I think if he plays back-to-back games, it worries me a little bit, because I think, he's still obviously carrying some form of injury. I'd probably go back as far as the FA Cup final, when he, I'd say rest him maybe, or maybe start him and bring him off if we're winning, because then you got to think past Porto. Saturday's another big game, FA Cup semi-final against Man City. So we've got to kind of have the forward-thinking look of things, and but I agree. I'm going to go for 2-1. I'm not going to go 2-0 this time. I'm going to go for 2-1 Chelsea. I think he might play Kante.
I think so too.
I think Kante only came on second half on Saturday, didn't he? I don't think he played the full game. And I'd go as far as to say that's why Reece James didn't start as well. I think he's got those kind of 2 players in mind that he wants to bring them in. It'd be a shame, because I think Kovacic and Jorginho. I mean, Jorginho was brilliant on Saturday, so he's undroppable for me. I don't think you can drop him. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see, and see how that works for us.
Yeah, I think Kante, we saw his performance against Atletico Madrid in the second leg. Probably one of the best performances I've seen from Kante since his early seasons at Chelsea. Yeah. So I think in a game of the magnitude against Porto, I think that's the type of game you want to be playing him, kind of intercept those passes. And he's been doing a lot more recently by driving up the pitch and kind of, participating in the attacking play. So I think I'd like to see Kante start for sure tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I agree. It'll be interesting. So we're both saying 2-1. I'm not going to change. I was going to change to 3-1, but I'm going to keep it. I don't think we'll be that lucky. I think it'll be such a difficult game. We'll be doing a lot more defending than we probably will be doing attacking in that game. So I'm going to go 2-1. Hopefully we can get those early goals. But I wanted to talk also around our loans that we've got, our loanees that we've got currently at the team. I'm not sure off the top of my head how many we've got. I'm going to say it's got to be at least near enough to 30 probably that we've got out on loan. So I don't intend to go through all 30 of them, but there's a few that I wanted to sort of pick out and go through. And obviously we can do the same as well. But is there any loanee players at the moment that you feel would possibly, I'm not saying they'd start every game, they're not, top starters, first name on the sheet kind of players, but is there any players within the team that you think, I mean, Conor Gallagher was probably a prime example. Is there any that you would see that could potentially play a part next season at Chelsea rather than go out on loan?
There's definitely a few that could kind of, come into the team, whether they're a starter or a squad player or a rotation player, I don't know. But I think Tomori, since he's been at Milan, my brother, he follows Milan a lot after Chelsea, so I catch the odd game from AC Milan. He's arguably one of their best players since arriving in January. Yeah. I think Milan aren't willing to pay the full 25 million from his from the contract.
Which is a bargain. You think
it's an absolute bargain, exactly. And I think they're struggling financially. Maybe they might need to sell Romagnoli, I was reading today, to kind of finance that move. But he's definitely a player. He's proved it in his first season at Chelsea under Lampard. He can play and as a starting centre back for the club. I think he's easily fitted to Tuchel's system as a back three as well. I can see him slot in next to Rudiger or Aspi, or if Silva doesn't sign an extension, he's the type of player you may consider bringing back in. Ampadu's another one, I think. Haven't seen the best of him maybe at Sheffield this season, seeing that they've been struggling so much defensively. But he's very versatile in defense. He can also play as a CDM. And, we saw him kind of, I think it was in Sarri's Sarri's early season. He kind of came in all those Europa League games, League Cup games. He's very mature on the ball. I think he's only 20 years old. He's only got, he hasn't played a lot of Premier League football, but he just seems so mature, so composed. He gets into the Wales team very often.
Yeah.
So I think defensively, those are the two players you could look at. Possibly Sarr as well on loan at Porto.
I was going to ask you about him because, he was a bit of an unusual signing for me anyway, because he's not the tallest, is he, for a centre back? I don't think. I'm sure he's quite short, but doesn't not the short end of it, but he hasn't really had the best of times at Porto, I don't think, as well, has he, as well? So I'm not sure. I think he's beforehand. He was I was made up when we signed him. I thought it was a really good signing. I think we got him on a free as well, didn't we? We didn't pay for him.
I think we got him on a free or very cheap. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting. There's options, and I think you're right. I think we have to kind of have a contingency for the fact that Thiago Silva might not sign a deal, or if he does, he might be, what will he be then? 38 probably.
I think he's approaching 38, 37.
37. So at the point of next season, he might be plagued with injuries next season. We don't know. He might start slowing down a bit. So we've got to have options, and I think we've got two possibles there. Tomori and Ampadu are definitely two. He was he not playing for Exeter at like 16?
Yeah.
That tells you that he's definitely destined for better things. When I say that, I mean Sheffield United isn't the top of the ceiling for him. I think he could definitely come back and do a job at Chelsea as well.
Yeah, I think that either definitely come back to Chelsea, maybe play the league games, maybe the Champions League group stage games, and hopefully kind of eventually kind of take replace Silva if he does end up leaving. Either that, or I'd love to see him maybe at a higher level Premier League club on another loan, maybe possibly a Palace, possibly a Wolves, that type of standard Premier League team. And I think with the right guidance, with the right manager, I think. If you look at Sheffield this season, they've sacked Wilder, maybe a big mistake. But I think Ampadu, maybe he knows his season's really over now in terms of kind of securing a Premier League spot with Sheffield next season.
Yeah.
So I think Sheffield's players' heads aren't at the right place right now. They're not kind of thinking ahead. So I think he's a very good player. As you said, he was at Exeter. I think only using the squad around 16. I studied at the University of Exeter. I used to walk past him on the high street a few times. Literally, didn't know he was a football player at the time. But a great player. The other one I wanted to maybe ask you about is on loan at Swansea is Guehi. I think he's had a fantastic season in the Championship, and I think he's another option for the future at centre back.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good shout. It's a good shout. I think he's pretty sure he's probably been one of their best players this season. Hasn't he? So I'll be honest, I haven't really watched that many. I haven't had time to watch many Championship games, but I have watched a lot of the Swansea games. 32 appearances or something like that. I read the other day as well. He's been one of the standout in the division. In the Championship. So he's got another bright future, and I've watched him youth level as well for Chelsea. So he's I think he's been in the England youth setup as well.
Yeah,
so.
I think he was in those group stage games, I think recently, where it didn't quite go to plan, but I think he's one of those players.
He's got a bright future. He's another one. We've got so many options. There was another one I wanted to mention who I used to watch quite a lot in the youth development sort of times at Chelsea, was Jake Clark-Salter, who's at Birmingham. I haven't really kept tabs on Birmingham this season, but I'm pretty sure they were hovering above relegation a few weeks ago, which is no impact on him. But I just feel like he's got. I'm not sure how old he is, but he's got to be around mid-20s probably now. Is it too late for him to come back and maybe? Is he the level that Chelsea need? I suppose is the better question.
Again, I think similar to you, I haven't watched many Championship games this season. I think I do remember him playing a part in that pre-season game against Brighton in the summer. I think he came on at half time, or maybe some halfway through the second half, and he looked quite solid at the back.
Yeah.
Whether that comes with his age, as you said, he's kind of like getting into that age now where it's make or break at Chelsea. I haven't watched enough of him to say, but I think he's that type of player as well, similarly to Ampadu, who can play some kind of rotation role. You kind of looked at Tomori 2 or 3 years ago. You kind of thought, he's on loan at Hull. He's on loan, going on loan to Derby. You don't think he's the type of player that's going to make it. But look at where he is now, about to sign for an amazing Italian team, possibly, or come back to Chelsea and fight for a spot. So I think it's never too late for these type of players. I think Clark Salter's that type of player as well that could possibly come in. Whether he's better than Tomori, Ampadu, Sarr.
It's a hard one to judge, isn't it? Because I don't think he's played enough at the level that we need him to play at to judge him. We can say that about Tomori and maybe even Ampadu, and to an extent, he's played at the highest level in English football, albeit they've been rock bottom of the table most of the season at Sheffield. But it's a difficult one to judge him on. I just vaguely remember him being so solid and commanding at youth level, and it's a shame. He reminds me very much of obviously different roles, but Lewis Baker. All the potential that he has, probably still has. But I almost feel like the ship sailed with him now, because he's got to be mid-20s as well. He's been on countless loan deals, and he's never really broke into the Chelsea team based on the fact that obviously the managers at the time that were there, they were just midfielders miles ahead of him. That weren't, he just never really got a good shot. So he's probably another one where I'd say I'd love to have seen him younger at Chelsea, breaking in. But it's a shame the ban didn't happen when we had that sort of crop of players, because we probably see a lot more of them, coming in.
Yeah, timing, I think, was very unlucky for these players. I think that kind of 2019 cohort that all came back from the loans in Mount, Abraham, Tomori, Reece James, I think, got very lucky with the timing, the ban, Lampard coming in as manager, whereas the other ones that was kind of, already had maybe 4 or 5 loans to their names, the likes of Baker, the likes of maybe Clark also maybe didn't get as lucky. And as a result, kind of faced another kind of year out on loan, and now 2 years out on loan. So it's whether they're able to get back into the team, whether they kind of proved that level to Tuchel. I think Tuchel, maybe this pre-season, he will look at all these youth players that kind of will come back from their loans and maybe make a decision on that. We haven't really had a pre-season under Tuchel. So I think that'll be very interesting, particularly as well with lots of the first team players going to the Euros this summer. It will mean that Tuchel will have more time with the players that aren't going to go to the Euros. So a lot of the youth players, a lot of the players that have been on the fringe of the first team. So that'll be really interesting to see what Tuchel does with them. But yeah, another one that, Baker, you've always seen him kind of in the team during pre-season, but never more than that, really. So
yeah. It's a shame for him because he's a good player.
Yeah.
There's a few players I wanted to mention, probably for the wrong reasons. So I'll start off with Danny Drinkwater.
Yeah, I had a list of players in my head, and he was one of them, because I think he spoke out recently and said he wants to come back to Chelsea. He wants to fight for his place. He still got a point to prove that Chelsea, which I like that mentality. I like it, But at the same time, all the kind of things that have happened off the pitch with him, I think is very disappointing. When he's from a first team player, whether it's bust ups up north in England, in nightclubs. I think that post he put up on Instagram recently. Yeah, I think when Leicester beat Chelsea, was it? I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it was a bit of an odd one, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he's that player. I think I was quite excited when we signed him. I thought it could be type of Gary Cahill move. Obviously, we paid more money for him, but English player. A lot of kind of experience under his belt coming into the team. Not much expected in terms of not as exciting maybe as a foreign player coming in. But I got quite excited when we signed him. He just won the season, I think 2 years before with Leicester.
He played with Kante as well, didn't he?
About to say partnership with Kante, but it just hasn't really worked out for him. I think that first season was kind of plagued with injuries with Conte, then change of manager of Sarri. Sarri clearly didn't rate him. Only played that Community Shield game, I think, against City, before just literally not even being part of the first team at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think he's got a future at Chelsea, unfortunately. He's on loan at Turkey now. I can see him maybe just like trying to stay at Chelsea until his contract ends, maybe earn some high money, and then maybe leaving on
good wages, isn't he?
He's on very good wages. It probably says why he's willing to fight for a spot at Chelsea. But yeah, again, every player that comes to Chelsea, I want him to do well, and he was one of them. But it just hasn't really worked out.
Okay, my next one. This is going to be an interesting one.
Mm.
Bakayoko. Yeah, that was my expression when I remembered he was still there actually as well. Yeah,
I literally you're just reminding me of players I've actually forgotten about. But he's arguably one of those ones that got many chances in his first season at Chelsea. Some of the times I think FA Cup final he looked so solid. I think his debut against Tottenham at Wembley he looked amazing again. But other than that, he was just very, very clumsy, very, very kind of error prone. That game against Watford with those 2 yellows in quick succession. Still haven't really forgiven him for that. But I don't know. I think Gattuso kind of summed him up perfectly. He said he's the type of player that can do really well and then straight after just cost you the game. And when he was at AC Milan, and now Gattuso's taken very clumsy, and now Gattuso's taken him at Napoli. And apparently Napoli aren't even willing to pay, I think, 15 or 17 million for him. I think something like that.
Yeah, he's been awful. I think they've come out, Napoli, and said there's like no chance that he's going to be staying. So he either needs to come back and prove himself, which I don't think he can, or he needs to start looking at alternative options. Because I do think Chelsea this season, the end of this season, will start thinking about getting some of these players. Again, another player who's on substantial amounts of money every week. Trying to get them off the books. If we want to attract certain players, which we'll talk about in the next episode, but if we're trying to attract top level players, we've got to balance the book somehow. So he'd be someone that I think we'd need to offload.
Yeah,
I'd probably say Danny Drinkwater as well. Ross Barkley,
because I've got a piece of paper here of names, and I've got in the same bracket Loftus-Cheek and Ross Barkley, and I can't see us keeping both of them. I think it's either one or the other.
That's a good shout.
And I think Loftus-Cheek, is that type of player every single Chelsea fan wants him to do well. After that season he had where he kind of broke into the first team, kind of was starting all those Europa League games, scoring, got that hat-trick against Bati Borisov. We kind of thought we were witnessing, the birth of an amazing Chelsea player. Then that kind of injury has just been downhill from there.
It's a tough one to come back from as well.
It's a very, very difficult one.
It could be career-ending to some people. It's a bad injury to try and come back from.
But I was so excited when he was named in the first team. He started the game against Brighton, our first game of the season this year. I think it was September 2020.
Yeah.
And I thought, he's going to be back in the team. He's going to be starting. He's going to be challenging Kai Havertz for a start in the lineup.
Yeah.
Then obviously very disappointed to see him go out on loan to Fulham, but at the same time excited because I thought Fulham would have been the perfect team for him to get minutes, get game time. I think Scott Parker is a young English manager as well, can maybe get the best out of him. To a certain extent, which I think he has. He's started games, he's assisting, he's maybe not as prolific in front of goal as we would have hoped. But I think, it's a difficult one because I don't think what he's shown this season is good enough to come back to Chelsea and start games. But at the same time, if we're patient with him, like we were with Tomori, like we were with Abraham, a couple loans.
Zuma as well. Remember Zuma went to Everton, didn't he? And Stoke, I think he went to as well.
Yeah.
He came back.
So I don't think if he does go out on loan again, I don't think that would be a bad thing necessarily. And I do want to see him play a part in the future at Chelsea. Then the other player you mentioned, Ross Barkley. I think he started off very, very strong again for Aston Villa.
He's been injured though, hasn't he? Had a hamstring injury.
Quite unfortunate with injuries. Very inconsistent as well with his performances. He's capable of dropping an amazing performance like he did in the FA Cup against Liverpool last season, where he looked, almost like, this is why I should be starting for Chelsea. This is why I should be starting for England as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, quite inconsistent with his performances. Very unfortunate with injuries. But again, that type of player that maybe Tuchel will look at in pre-season, possibly if he doesn't go to the Euros, and maybe says, I like your ability. I think he often impresses in pre-season. That first pre-season he had with Lampard, I think he looked very, very sharp with his passing.
He scored a few, didn't he, in the pre-season? Coming from the America games or the...
I think it's was it Salzburg? I think he might have scored against... No.
Yeah, it was. I'm sure it was it might have been a German team.
Yeah, and he scored against Barcelona, I think, in pre-season as well.
He did. He had a brilliant pre-season. He did. He really did. But yeah, there's always to talk about his off-field stuff, very similar to Drinkwater in terms of, not maintaining his body and things like that, which will if you don't do that as a footballer, it does cause injuries that you probably didn't even realize you could get. So yeah, he was looking after his body, and I think there's always been that signs of that when he was at Everton as well. I was surprised they let him go. He wanted to get the move as well. If you remember as well, I think we were due to sign him the season before. Sorry, it was due to sign him before we actually signed him.
Yeah.
And I think that the medical failed, or there was all these other rumours as well. So I agree with you. I don't think we can keep two players that are very similar. If I had to pick one, I'd say Loftus-Cheek, because I feel like we can get more out of him. But now, obviously, my only worry for him is that he's had that injury. Is he ever going to be at the level that we hoped he would be? And time is running out. I mean, I suppose I still look at Loftus-Cheeks, and I still see them as very young players, but they're in the sort of, not the peak. I'm not saying should have hit their peak by now, but they're on the way up to that level where they should be hitting peaks and the almost top level of their football. And we haven't really seen that with him due to the injuries as well. So it'll be interesting. It really will be. I've got a few more on my list. Okay, so I'm going to start with Batshuayi.
No. I mean, okay. I love Michy. I think every Chelsea fan loves him. That goal against West Brom when he won us the league, the goals against Atletico, Ajax.
Not enough though, is it?
Yeah, crucial goals. But you look at him against Palace. For Palace this year, he's not even starting games. So if he can't get minutes for Palace, I don't expect him to start for Chelsea. Yeah. And as well, last season there was times I watched him. It was very frustrating. Missing kind of some easy chances. He kind of were asking, what you're thinking to yourself, why is Lampard starting Batshuayi ahead of Giroud? Those type of kind of decisions. But he's a player, I think, good for the squad, but not good enough to start for Chelsea, especially now when you look at Tuchel and he's not even playing Giroud or Abraham.
He'd be
I can't see any way Batshuayi can get back into this team. And another one I think Chelsea may want to try to sell rather than loan again, but his wages may prove to be difficult. So I don't think Palace will sign him permanently either. I don't think so.
No. Well, if Roy Hodgson's there, he definitely won't, because I think they've had a bit of a bust up there as well. Yeah. Okay, my final one. And I forgot he was actually a Chelsea player. Well, I've got two, so I've got two left. So I'll start with Victor Moses.
Yeah. It's a funny one because I think the other player you could kind of talk about with Victor Moses is Kennedy. Those type of two players. Yeah,
that is
I think left wing back and right wing back.
Yeah,
those roles are perfect for them. And if we are going to play over a back three of the wing backs, I think you could look at Moses, you could look at Kennedy, type of players that have proved in the past that they can start games. I think Moses under Conte was one of the he looked like
he was reformed.
Yeah. He was amazing as right wing back, and another player that beat the loan system. I think he went out on loan to Liverpool, Stoke, and West Ham. Came back, proved the point to Conte in pre-season. I can do a better job than Cuadrado.
Probably one of our best players that season, wasn't he as well?
Yeah, he was instrumental that season. And again, it's a tricky one because I think he can start. I haven't watched him enough at Spartak Moscow this year.
Yeah, but I haven't either.
I think time difference and all that might be tricky to kind of catch the Russian league games, but I think it's whether he can kind of get into this team ahead of Hudson-Odoi and Reece James, which I don't think he can. Particularly, I think, I mentioned he came back from loan once. Whether he can do it again, I don't think so. And Kennedy is the other one. I think was very, very unlucky last year. I think he was on the bench for an opener against Man United. We lost 4-0.
Yes,
He had a decent preseason under Lampard. I think he scored a cracker against Reading, I think it was, in preseason. Yeah. And type of player as well, great potential. I watched the highlights against Man U. He always gets on the edge of the box and just ability to put in a volley. It didn't quite work out against United, but he looks sharp. I think he's maybe better suited attacking, offensively than defensively. Yeah. But I'm a big fan of Kennedy's. I think ever since that first preseason of his, when he scored when he looked really sharp against Barcelona, I think he was still on trial at Chelsea. And he started a few games in that season where we didn't quite go to plan. We finished 10th. I think he scored against Norwich. He started, I think, one of the legs against PSG, I think, at the Parc des Princes.
Yeah.
I think he's got the experience. He's got a few loans now in La Liga. I'd like to see Kennedy more than maybe Moses, I think, especially at left wing back, where Alonso and Chilwell, they've been good, but still not fully convincing maybe at times. So I think
you get good peaks and out of the two of them. But it's a good option to have, isn't it, at that side of the pitch as well.
But then maybe if you're going to look at Kennedy, you can look at someone like Maatsen as well on loan at Charlton.
Yeah, he was on my list, but I missed him
Yeah.
off. Yeah.
But I think we've got lots of options, especially if we're playing with this back three of the wing backs.
Yeah.
So you can maybe ask yourself the question: do you want to go out and buy players, or do you want to bring some of these players back? So preseason will be really interesting this summer.
I think it's a case of making sure we retain the best of that bunch rather than just keeping a Danny Drinkwater because he's come out and said, I want to stay at the club. If you was paying me what they're paying him, I'd probably do this. Well, maybe not because it's Chelsea. I'd stay at Chelsea regardless. But my point is, if you was getting that much money, I'd probably come back and fight for my place as well. It'd be interesting. I think we still need to get rid of some of the dead wood. We're carrying a lot of passengers at the moment, and like I said, we want to try and bring in some other players. I'm pretty sure this season. I'm sure Tuchel's got his own plans, and he's got a short list of players he'd love to try and bring into the club as well. So it'll be interesting. We've got a massive wage bill. I was reading about it the other day. I had to sit down when I read it. It was ridiculous. But we've got a massive. But we've always had that kind of issue. We do pay quite high wages, but we need to get rid of some of the players that are just sort of sitting around and yes, they're playing their football elsewhere, but it's not really benefiting us. And if we can utilize that money, bring in a player that, I don't want to, we will save that for the next episode, our transfer targets. But if you can bring in some of those players, why not? If it's gonna work. But I'd love to see some of those players come back. I still think they've got a role to play at Chelsea as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Tuchel does in the summer, especially after the Euros. I'm sure some of them will still be involved in some capacity. Some of them will be involved in the Euros as well. Yeah,
really exciting as well. I think a lot of those, as you mentioned, they should be just not disregarded. The likes of Drinkwater, Bakayoko, possibly, which we spoke about. But there's some of the other options we spoke about, which definitely should be considered. Not particularly the younger ones, but maybe some of the more experienced ones, the Kennedys, the Moseses. But going to be a really interesting preseason, as I said.
Yeah. Okay. So tomorrow, Porto, 2-1.
2-1.
Yeah. I'm going to stick with 2-1. So I think we'll be recording episode 4 at some point this week, I think, as well, hopefully, so we can get our analysis on hopefully a good win tomorrow. Like I said, I'm optimistic. I'll be nervous as hell, but I'll be optimistic at the same time as well. So thanks for listening to episode 3 of From the Shed End. You can, as always, follow us on From the Shed End on Twitter and Instagram. And we've got the live stream working. So we're hoping to do a lot more of these as well. We'll be trying to keep them as entertained and interactive as possible. If you've got any questions or any topics or anything you want us to discuss on the podcast, just give us a shout, let us know. Interact with us on the socials as well. We're definitely up for bringing people on and letting you have your say as well, because I think that's what this is all about. But until next time, thanks for listening.